wine and water and whatever else you need. And welcome to this Fringe event. I'm Sebastian Payne. I'm political leader writer at the FT, and I'm here to have a chat with Rob Halfon, who I'm sure many of you know who he is. Rob is the MP for Harlow since 2010, after a few bashes at the seat and chiselled away Labour's majority. He first made his name as a great campaigner in the Conservative Party on fuel duty and on issues relating to, well, ordinary people, I'd say. He was then made aide to George Osborne and became eventually deputy chairman of the Conservative Party and was a minister in the Education Department and is now back speaking his mind from the back benches. So we're here to talk about essentially the Tories as the Workers' Party. Now this is the text here of working class Conservatives, Stop the Union Bashing, and Rob published this in 2012 with DEMOS, who are kindly hosting us here. And what I think you were trying to do with this, Rob, to put our first question to you, was reshape the Conservative Party's approach to working people. Because for a long time it's been an us versus them thing, and I think you tried to take a different approach to this. Since you first began this, how successful has it been?
Well, first of all, can I say it's really good to be here. Thank you to DEMOS, to the Conservative Workers and Trade Union movement for making this possible. I wrote this pamphlet because I thought we were really getting it wrong as a party. I thought that our rhetoric and what we were saying about trade unionism was very one way. We were just focusing on the political side of some union activities rather than actually representing millions of ordinary people who are trade union members.
You're a trade union member yourself, aren't you?
Yes, in fact I'm a member of Prospect. Now I haven't joined that because I'm an ideologue. I've joined Prospect because actually it gives you some really good services, and that's my key point. Millions of trade union members are members of trade unions not because they want to go on political demonstrations. In fact, very few of them actually do that. They join trade unions because they want these services. They get help with their wages, they get legal advice. Some unions even offer private health insurance. People offer help with loans. Trade unions offer help with loans and accountancy services. Unions are actually a very good thing. And a third of them vote Conservative. And I thought that it was crazy that even under Margaret Thatcher, there was something like 170 Conservative trade union branches up and down the country. And there we were in 2010, 2011 onwards, literally bashing trade unions at every opportunity.
But I think that still happens in a way. And if you take, say, Len McCluskey, the big Unite Baron, whatever the text is that people like to describe him as, and he's obviously very close to the Jeremy Corbyn project. A lot of the other unions are as well, but there are some unions, the Community Union for example, I think played a very good role between the Port Talbot steel workers, Tata who took over, and the government to get a deal that worked for everyone. But you have to admit the trade union movement is dominated by a lot of people who are sort of,
some of the bigger trade union leaders and the hierarchy of some of the bigger trade union leaders are dominated by people on the left and are dominated by people who believe that you achieve political aims through political activism. But we need to make a distinction between that and the millions of moderate people who join those trade unions, many of them who support the Conservative Party, many of them who belong to those trade unions because they know that unions are going to guarantee for them whether it's workers' services, whether it's workers' rights, workers' wages, helping with jobs and skills. So that is the problem in our party, and that's why I wrote that paper.
So let's look at where we are now. Has the party moved in the right direction with its talk about unions and workers?
I think that since, I would say roughly between 2013 and 2014, we've been doing things and saying things. Both George Osborne, David Cameron and the Prime Minister talked about the Conservative being the Workers' Party. I wrote an article originally about this, saying we should be called the Workers' Party in 2011, and I was called for what is known in the Whipsmith thing as a meeting without coffee.
Was that with whiskey or was that the
Sadly,
tarantula?
there was no whiskey. There was no tarantula or no whiskey at the time, but people just thought I was a kind of bonkers. But both David Cameron in his speech, George Osborne and the current Prime Minister said, because it's the Workers' Party, and when we introduced the national living wage, when we cut taxes for lower earners, raising the threshold, when we created 3.4 million apprenticeships, when we created millions of jobs, that actually gives that claim credence. And my whole argument is actually stop bashing the trade unions, recognise the distinction between militant trade unions and moderate trade union members, and actually our message is that we are the workers' party, the party of the ladder, the party of aspiration, opportunity.
So I think the message has changed in that period, but what happened in June's snap election was that the Conservative Party lost working Britain in a lot of its places, that the Conservative votes came from a lot of people who are retired, older people. And if you look at that crucial demographic of 35 to 55, they broke for Labour. So something has gone wrong there.
Yeah. Well, there were all sorts of arguments why the election went wrong for the Conservative Party. Clearly, parts of the manifesto, when we said that we're going to take away people's school dinners, when we said we're going to take away the winter fuel allowance, and then take away people's homes if they are sick when they're old, it wasn't the best kind of advert for working class conservatism. And so that's why we suffered in the way that we did. But having said that, there are core things that we've been doing as a government. The problem is we're doing these things and they are a series of clothes pegs without a washing on. There's no narrative, there's no message behind it, there's no consistency, there's no repetition, and there's no special story about why we're doing these things. And in contrast, the Labour Party constantly, whilst I clearly disagree with their prescriptions, constantly represent what they term as their moral message, which is what people understand them to be, which is helping the underdog.
How worried are you about that threat from Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party? Because I was there covering that last week, and the mood was very different to the Conservative conference here. And there is a certain feeling that they are on the up and they are winning the intellectual argument on basic things like the economy and their attitude to working Britain.
So, I don't know if any of you watch Game of Thrones. Sometimes I look at this and thinking the White Walkers are coming for us. Now,
winter is coming.
Winter is coming. The White Walkers are coming for us, but because they are they're campaigning in a way that we are not campaigning. They have the membership and the infrastructure that we do not have. 650,000 members. By the way, the vast majority are not all from the far left. We make a big mistake if we think that. And they have a message. I mean, last week they were talking about cutting credit card loan debt. These are things that matter to millions of people. John McDonnell went to see McDonald's workers. Now, if you are a parent of a McDonald's worker on quite low pay, you may think, well, that guy's on my side. Now, I happen to fundamentally believe their prescriptions are wrong. I'm proud to be a Conservative. I've been a Conservative since I've been 14 years old. I joined the party.
Well, why did you join the Conservative Party as opposed to the Labour Party?
Because I always thought that we were the party of the ladder of opportunity. I joined at the time because of Margaret Thatcher. I felt that she spoke. My father was an immigrant, came here with nothing, sold food and vegetable wholesale, made money. And that if you worked hard and did the right thing, that you would be able to get on in life. I think the mistake we made in the 1980s, however, was that we thought that if you create enough economic capital, you'll have social capital as well. In other words, if you create economic capital, it will trickle down and you'll have strong communities and a strong society. Actually, that didn't happen. So although we created a strong economy, we face significant problems. And what I think modern conservatism has to be about, when I say about a workers' party and ladder opportunity, if I intellectualise it, I say that we actually got to build economic capital and social capital at the same time.
Let's talk about this ladder. So you've advocated this should be the Tory party's logo as opposed to the tree, which was a green tree. It's now a Union Jack tree. Who knows what kind of tree it'll be less. But the question about this ladder is that how much support does that need from the government? Because you could argue in the 1980s that there was not much support behind that ladder, and Labour are the ones who are willing to prop up that ladder to a greater extent than the Conservatives are.
Well, this is why I'm a Conservative and not a Labour person, because in my view, Labour hands things to people at the bottom of the ladder but doesn't give them a climb up. The essence of conservatism is that we bring people to the ladder, we help them climb up, so that if you are from low income, we will get you a skill, we will get you a job, we'll give you a chance to climb up that ladder, to get the job security and prosperity right at the top of that ladder. The problem with the broccoli symbol is that no one knows.
You heard it here first.
No one knows what it means. It doesn't mean anything. And I am a massive believer in the power of symbolism. So you have to have policies and framework, I'm sure we're going to come to that, underneath it all. But I want the first thing, when people see the Conservative Party, I want them to know what it's about. And the reason why I've got ladder mania, as someone on Conservative Home put it, is because I think that if people see the ladder, it has to have hands around the ladder, because it's not just allowing people to climb, but the government is there, Conservatives are there to bring people to the ladder, to help them climb, to be there in case they fall off that ladder. But if we had a ladder with hands on it as our symbol, every time everybody looked at that symbol on the news, in leaflets, on the internet, whatever it might be, people would immediately understand what the Conservative Party is all about. But of course it won't just work by itself. It's not just about having a badge. It's about creating a narrative, an exciting narrative, an exciting message about that younger people particularly understand that we are the party of aspiration and opportunity, the party of the ladder of the workers' party.
So you were deputy chairman of the party for a period. Why was the ladder not adopted then?
Well, because not everybody agreed with it. So
anyone in particular?
These things take a long time. So, for example, when I was Minister for Apprentices, I changed the A badge to have a ladder on the side of the A. And the apprentices we met, they loved that badge.
Subtle ladders then.
But what happened, initially there was a newspaper, a wonderful newspaper, a trade newspaper called FE Week, which really respected in the industry. They first did a video of Mickey Mouse climbing a ladder that never ended to describe my ladder obsession in terms of apprenticeships and education. And then 6 months later, they put the whole front page was literally a picture of a ladder of opportunity about apprentices. So it takes a long time. And at the conference today, not only has my old boss Justin Greening talked about the ladder, but the Book of Ruth, which I have a picture of her on my wall, by the way. Book of Ruth, she talked about the Conservative Party as the party of the ladder. So slowly, if you go on about it long enough, people will start to take up the idea.
What policies could the government adopt that it hasn't currently got? Because we've talked about this idea that working Britain is not being appealed to by the Conservative Party. Those who want to use that lovely word, aspire to something better, the policies aren't there. If you were to choose, say, sort of 3 things you could do to improve that situation, what would they be?
I think I'm going to sort of answer your question, if I may, being a politician.
I prefer an answer.
We need to first of all, we need to reclaim the language of compassion back from the left. And we need to use it in conservative ways. So we need to be the party of social justice. We need to be the party of redistribution. Now, hear me out. Before you, as many of you think with socialist redistribution, we say that we raise extra funds from cutting corporation tax, and we do. I believe in cutting taxes. It's part of Conservative DNA. We raise 50% extra. I mean, in fact, the Financial Times reported that only this April. We should put that in a special redistribution fund and spend it either on cutting taxes or increasing wages for the lower paid, or on helping poorer communities, or on other things that help the most disadvantaged. So in other words, what we are doing is redistributing the extra revenues raised from cutting taxes for the rich and using that to help those people on low incomes. That is conservative redistribution. And so we need to reclaim the words and have policies behind it. We need to increase wages. I would have, when we're getting locked into this argument about tuition fees at the moment, and it's good that the government made moves on it.
Do you think that's the right policy?
I think we need to make moves, definitely, and make the burden less. But I'll tell you what the policy should be to our young people in terms of this. We should say to every single young person, look, we can't pay for all your tuition fees because we've got to be fair to the burden on the taxpayer and the student. But I'll tell you what we can do. We can offer every single one of you, every single young person from the age of 16 onwards, a high quality, high skilled apprenticeship from everything from engineering to coding, to plumbing to electricals, in almost every field, high quality apprenticeship from level 2 right up to degree level. You earn while you learn, you have no debt at all, and you're virtually guaranteed to get a job afterwards. That should be our offering in terms of skills and education to our young people, because we will not be able to outbid Labour on the student loan issue. We can make things a little better, but we won't be able to outbid them. We need to build an apprenticeship and skills nation.
Just on that, because there is a slight concern among some Conservatives that you're giving away the intellectual ground to Labour on things like tuition fees, because if you're a young voter who is wound up about tuition fees, why would you vote for the Conservative slim option when you go for the full fat Labour, let's not have any tuition fees? So where's the clear blue water, as you might call it, between them?
So, well, you need to have, I think there are moderate people out there, and I think people do accept that there, dare I say it, isn't this magic money trick. And
Theresa May that.
And I think that if you say to people, make this argument, and my constituents, many of my constituents in Holland don't go to university, why should they pay for people who get better paid jobs who do, you have to share the burden equally. And I think if you make that, but we want to make things fairer. And in fact, universities should be completely re-geared. We have a huge skills deficit in our country, lower than lots of G7 countries. We should re-gear universities. I would love to have at least 50% of degrees being degree apprenticeships, where, as I said, you earn while you learn, no debt at all, and a job at the end.
So when you were in the education department, you worked a lot on apprenticeships and what have you, and there's some good messages there. Why wasn't that made more of during the general election? And why are you not still there talking this language?
Well, my passion was for millions of people to have apprenticeships. I did try and get that message across to say this is what our message should be. Sometimes you win arguments, sometimes you don't. I mean, the Prime Minister has to move people around. I have huge respect for the Prime Minister, and she made a decision. But I'm very lucky I've been elected to chair of the Education Committee, so I can continue this in other ways.
I'm going to come to the Education Select Committee moment. I just want to talk about the Conservative Party as a whole, because you've mentioned Labour's got its huge mass membership, some very enthused people on social media, and they're very enthusiastic on knocking on doors too. How can the Conservatives respond? Because its membership, we still don't know how big it is, but it's probably about 150,000. And as I think it was reported recently, average age of the Conservative member is 72. So how are you going to take on Labour with a dwindling membership?
Well, if we are to achieve a mass membership party, I think that we need to do something really radical. We have a problem with the Conservative brand across the country. As I said, we need to have our own moral message about the ladder of opportunity. Personally, first step is I think we need a rebrand. I'm quite radical, and I believe we should be called the Workers' Party. I think we've got the policies that back it up, but I realise that's going to be a difficult one to get Conservatives to agree to. So the Conservative Workers' Party to explain.
What about Unionists? The Conservative Workers Unionist Party.
Well, that has so many different connotations. If you ask, I like things. I'm a one-seal politician. I love things that are easy to explain. Does what it says on the tin. Conservative Workers' Party does what it says on the tin. But we need to do more than that. Apart from the ladder and the name, we need to radically change our membership system. So I would like our party to literally be a modern trade union, in the sense that people join and get membership services. So, for example, we would give every party member a fuel card to help them with the cost of petrol, negotiate with the fuel card companies that give, many companies do this. We would give young people, apprentices, or for example, if they joined, a free bus pass. Now, it isn't just a question of services, because actually what people want to do is be involved. And dare I say, one of the great things about the Labour Party is that they have so much participation and involvement, and members genuinely can vote for motions at conference. They genuinely have votes to the representatives. Our party board should be a one member, one vote system. I do not understand why it is just the great and the good of associations who decide there is a small vote, but decide who, the Conservative Policy Forum should be one member, one vote. We want a real democratic party, and there's nothing to be afraid of. We should be, when the media challenge us saying such and such has tabled this motion, say it's honest and open debate. That's what it is all about. And under Mrs. Thatcher, there were conference motions.
There is a slight issue that Mrs. May is not quite known for open, honest debate in the way she has her leadership. What's your view on who should succeed her in sort of taking the party forward?
Well, I believe the Conservative Party is a family. It's a dysfunctional family, but it's a family nevertheless.
Like all good families.
Like all good families, and I'm proud to belong to it. As I say, I've been a member since 14 years old, and I've always taken an old-fashioned view in this, that I believe it's my duty to support the Prime Minister. So I think the Prime Minister should be there as long as she wants to be there. She has said she has acknowledged she wants to get us out of the mess she got us in. I'm sure we will see that. What I've made clear to her is that I would never ever say anything publicly or privately against the Prime Minister, but I will speak honestly about how I see the need for our party, the radical reforms that we need to do in on policy, because I think that now is the time that we need to recognise the things that need fixing, because if we don't, we're going to potentially fall off the edge of the cliff.
Well, I assume that cliff looks like Jeremy Corbyn. How much of a chance do you think that the things you say that need doing don't get done? We get the next election and things are pretty much as they are now, which tends to be the Conservative Party's default thing of just sort of nudging in direction but not making radical reforms.
So On an optimistic note, if you go to the Conservative history stand downstairs, it's brilliant. I'm just reading earlier, 1886, they'd had a very difficult, 1885 had a very difficult Conservatives election result, and then they reformed the party and then were in power for 20 years. We've shown in our history that we can reform when we've had a deep decline, and I think we need to do that. The other optimistic thing I would say, what happened at the election, Aesop's fable, tortoise and the hare, we were the hare, okay, and Labour was the tortoise that actually beat the hare. I think this is now happening in reverse, that the Labour Party are actually getting too complacent. They're acting like they've genuinely won the election, that they're almost in government. And I think, Rick Zubin goes back to Kinnock at his famous rally, going all right and so on. I don't think British people like complacency either, and the Labour are kind of a role reversal here, that they are the hare and we are now the tortoise, and that might not be a bad thing.
I think we're almost coming to the end of our chat before we break it open the panel here, but just briefly, the Education Select Committee, which you were elected to by your fellow MPs, you must be very excited to have that. What are you going to do with it?
Well, to no one's surprise, I won that election by handing out ladder leaflets around the House of Commons for 4 days outside the chamber. We're going to have a twin track of social justice, because I want the committee to look at every aspect of the education system to see where people from disadvantaged backgrounds are falling through the net and not getting the equality of opportunity that they deserve. And the second side of it is dealing with productivity and our skills deficit, because it is pretty grim. It's a nightmare on Skill Street, and we need to do something about it. The government's doing a lot, to be fair, but it is a very serious issue.
And some quick fire last questions. Who's your favourite other Conservative MP?
Who's my favourite? Oh, that's a tough one. There's so many of them. I have to say, I don't agree with him. I would never vote for him as a leader in a million years. But just because he's so unique, Jacob has to be. I never vote for him as leader. I don't think he's the right person, but he's a unique and kind and humorous, wonderful MP.
I'm sure he has a very fine set of ladders in his house. And if you out of everything you said, if you could pick one thing you could do as party leader for the day, would it be changing the name, changing the logo, or what would it be?
It would be changing our membership and turning ourselves into, as I say, offering services to members and democratising the party. I'd get the name change and the ladder after that.
That might be for day 2. Right, well I think that's going to bring to the end this part of our